Hey everybody, it's Deanna and Dennis. I have my friend with me, Dennis Schiraldi. We've been having some technical issues, which is why we're late today coming on and talking to you with Fearless Entrepreneurship. Coming on every day, there he is, he's back. Coming on every day at the same time with someone different, somebody that is usually in digital marketing industry, but we have a variety of people that can speak to the small business owners and just kind of help everybody get through what we're going through. And Dennis agreed to join me today, and I'm super stoked because I've been on Dennis's show a lot, and I never really have done this. I've done like gone live, but not where it's been consistently for a while. So I finally get to have Dennis here. So how are you, Dennis?
We're doing really good. It's actually really good to be a part of this. Usually I'm doing like a lot of interviews and pulling people on, and appreciate all that you've been doing, launching Fearless Entrepreneurship and lining people up to interview them on a day-to-day basis. Like, I don't think that people understand the challenges that come along with that and working in advance. And then people like myself acting like a little bit of a diva and rearranging my schedule as it unfolds by the minute. And then you have to plug somebody in the backdrop. So, kudos to yours. Good to be here. Everybody is good. First and foremost, thank you. Frontline people, healthcare workers, people working at the grocery stores, all those sorts of jobs that, basically unsung heroes having to go out there and put it on the line every day. Like, my take on it is like, last week I was at the grocery store and I'm picking the line of going to the checkout, and picking a line at the checkout has a whole new meaning in this current state of environment, right? Like, you're looking around, and social distancing doesn't mean that you have to not smile and make eye contact with people. But I found myself at the grocery store kind of like giving it one of these, like, you can't catch this from looking at somebody, but maybe I can. So in any case, I appreciate that. We're staying safe. We've been hunkered down like everybody. Hopefully everybody for the stay-at-home order. And full disclosure, for those of you that know me, some of you may not, I've got 4 kids under the age of 11. We are obviously homeschooling them. There is without an unquestionable doubt that all the meetings, all the Zooms, all the stuff that we've been doing online, there's a little person that will be walking through and in back, and probably some yelling along the way. So you're just gonna have to deal with it.
Well, you might have to hear my dog barking, because every once in a while, if the kids are outside playing or doing something, or somebody's outside walking their dog, Biggie starts barking. So, I mean, that's just what happens when you go live, right? You don't know what's going to happen.
How's Biggie doing?
Biggie's doing great. He's doing really good. He is the laziest dog I know. He's living a good life, no lie. Like, he eats really good, and he lays in the sun all day, and he sleeps. And actually, I want to swap places with him.
Right?
He's spoiled.
Yeah, that would be like, that's sounds like a lot of guys I know. So what's going on? Like, you launched this a little while ago, right? Been going live every day for how long?
So I initially launched it, and that's such a great question. I initially launched it because I was getting so many questions from small business owners, just asking, like, what do I do? And you can hear the fear initially. I think that fear is, the uncertainty is there a little bit more, but the fear has kind of somewhat passed. I don't want to say completely, but I just wanted to share ideas, and I don't have all the answers, but I have a circle of friends that are absolutely amazing. So I knew I could pull different people in to really share different ideas. My thought was I would just do this for a week or two. And I think this is my 3rd or 4th week doing it. Not very long, but last night Jason even asked, he's like, how long are you going to do that? Like, I don't honestly know. I'm going to do it until I don't do it anymore. Like, definitely through this pandemic, but I may continue. But you're right, what you said, it's a big commitment. I didn't realize the commitment that it was when I did it. I just wanted to, share ideas and support the community, the business community, and, let's all come together and help each other and brainstorm some ideas that can move you ahead and bring on people like yourself to help share those ideas. And it's really a lot of fun. I mean, it is a big commitment, but it's a lot of fun. And everybody that has come on here has been absolutely amazing. They really have. They've all contributed some really good stuff. We have RJ. He came on. He called you a diva. I don't know if you saw that when you were talking. We got to put back
Well,
on here.
I don't have a cape, but I do have diva-like tendencies. And that's a little Instagram joke. If you've not been on Instagram today, RJ has a picture of him getting crowned a high school dance king of some sort. Not only does he have the crown, but it is very pimp-esque with a cape as well. And I didn't go further into the swipes. There might even be a specter, there might be a goblet. Who knows? Like the whole thing could be working and going on right now.
Was this from his prom? Because I saw his prom picture.
Probably his prom.
Was it his prom? He posted. RJ, if you're still on listening, is this all about your prom picture? Did you wear a cape
Yeah.
prom too? Like
he's got the whole crown with the cane and the cape. I love the cape. If the cape still exists, I would borrow the cape.
I have to check it out and see. He's always doing something, and his stories with his kids or with Amelia is just hysterical.
It is a good thing that that you obviously are doing this now, and I'm a big fan, huge believer in creating content on a consistent basis, and we'll probably jump into like some of the conversations that I've had over the past month and a half. And I encourage you to keep going with it and figure out how to make that work. There was a virtual assistant company, and I can't remember the name of them. I went through just a litany of virtual assistant companies. So if anybody needs a virtual assistant and you're vetting a company, chances are that I either signed with them or fired them or they fired me or whatever the case might be. I did end up with somebody great as this all happened. I kind of put it on hiatus because I didn't know where we were going, but there'd be a great task for a virtual assistant to just go out and line up your interviews that would free up time. And the 10 hours a month that you could get them for is pretty nominal fee. I forget what was the name of anyway, I have it in my email. I'd have to look it up, but yeah.
Send that over. I really didn't think about it. But
because then they'll take all this of what you do with it, not only the scheduling piece, which is a lot of work and lining people up, and the notes and and then once you've recorded of what you're doing, post this as well. Like they'll do all that for you, and even something small like that is a big thing.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It definitely is. So I wanted to talk to you. I mean, you and I have had a ton of conversations about so many different things when it comes to digital marketing, but I have to tell you what you did with DOYO Live and the Digital Marketing Conference, I think was amazing. The way you took this conference and initially was told something like this would never fly in Youngstown, and you have grown it. And it's a great conference. How did you do that? First off, what was it like when you had this idea? You first said, go ahead.
Before I say thank you to all that, it's like our awesome podcast that never went anywhere. He said, she said.
We did. I know. We spent all that time recording it then, and then we just, it's like, okay, now what do we do?
I like people to see the bumps and the hiccups. They don't, and not the end result. But first email that I ever got for DOYO Live was in March of 2016. Somebody said, "Hey, what is DOYO Live? Marketing conference in Youngstown, Ohio. How much is a ticket?" I responded, and the email I should have known right away was something like Assman 225 or something like that, which is completely ridiculous that I was actually responding to that email address anyway. But so I gave the value, this is what we're doing. Never answer just with your price. You build the value and then give the price. Yeah. And the response I got back was good luck in Youngstown, Ohio. And which was amazing because that was just all the more motivation that I needed along the way. And funny, RJ's on because he actually built the first website for DOYO Live in the fall of 2015. I had been traveling around the country speaking or attending marketing conferences, and it was one of those events where I came home at about 2:00 in the morning. There was a flight that was supposed to have me in at about 8. I've got a young family, like that's where we started. And when I went to go hop that flight to a delay to a bus ride to now I'm pouring myself a bed at 2:00 in the morning, been thinking about a marketing conference on and off in Youngstown and what we had just experienced. I was like, there's enough here. I've got to now put on my smart guy marketing hat. Somebody's going to do this if I don't, which a little bit of naiveness at that point for the amount of work that goes into it. There's not a lot of people out there that want to do that, open themselves up to the critique and all the stuff that come along with it. But RJ, build me a website, give me a logo, and RJ blew it out in a month. We put it out coming soon. Coming in 2016, coming in the summer of 2016. And then we had a keynote and all these things kind of materialized. And the way that I built that then is the way that I've been building it now. And that is with this right here, the use of content. And my motto has and always will be to generate valuable content to an audience, build my subscriber list, utilize social media channels, website, continue to build bringing value with either blogs, a vlog show like this on social media, monthly webinars. We do some in-person networking events. And as we build that audience, I play for 364 days a year, build that audience that you'll want to buy a ticket one time. The goals for the conference have always been remain the same, and the mission. The mission is ongoing professional development, simulate the economy of Youngstown, Ohio, and be purpose-driven, gives back with some time or money into organizations in the community. And we've done all those things consistently. At the conference, the goal is basically for people to have an amazing time. And if they do that, they'll want to come back, continue to grow, make a meaningful connection. So somebody that they can walk away with and say, we met at DOYO, we got coffee together, we do this, we do that, we formed a group, we formed our own workshops, whatever that be. And the third is to learn something that you can implement into your business that very day. And so that's been the genesis and the idea behind DOYO, not about me, but the driver. And then just keep doing it. And every year as we've done it, it's grown exponentially by about 30, 40%. The audience continues to grow. And that's where we are today.
You make it sound so easy. You're like, well, this is all what we're doing. And here's what our mission is and our goal. And we do it. But I know it's not. I mean, I've helped out.
You've been on the committees. You've been involved. You've spoken every year. You've been roped in to be a part of obviously the planning organization. So yeah, you've seen firsthand. Take my phone calls when we're coming down to some pretty sensitive times where I've always appreciated that I could reach out and have a conversation with you about it. So yeah. And so there's a question there, I think.
Well, it's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than I think people realize that goes on behind the scenes. And I feel for Joanna a little bit, like the week of DOYO Live, because you're a little stressed out.
The 51 weeks leading into it probably are more work. I mean, I'll put it this way: when you establish that mission and you have that goal in mind, everything gets a lot easier. Yes, there's a lot of work that goes involved. And this kind of goes back to something I was talking about with, one of our media sponsors yesterday, WKBN last week, was like, where are you at with DOYO for 2020? And how is this changing? And a lot of people's marketing is impacted and has been by COVID-19. Nobody has a global pandemic in their playbook for a shutdown of society in complete totality, right?
Right.
And so, my response to them was, yes, this is going to impact our event because events are impacted, but it doesn't necessarily impact our marketing. And the reason is that so many businesses transition to saying, well, we got to deliver content online. We've got to build up free interaction. We've got to do webinars. The exercise, the yoga studio said, well, I'm going to be doing free Facebook Lives now. In reality, the yoga studio should have been doing Facebook Lives, one time per week, year round, because the one thing that we completely understand about this environment that we're in right now, we all want the human connection.
Yeah.
And even if I give you a ton of free content online, you still want to come see me in person. Like I can Google right now, yoga online for free, but I like my yoga instructor. I like my yoga community. And so I think a lot of people, like in KBN included, I was like, we're still doing monthly webinars as we have for the past 4 years and the 10 years I've been doing it for clients. We're still pushing out blog content as we have, 1, 2, 3 days a week that we have for the past 7 years. We still have an email campaign that goes out 1, 2, 3 times a week. We haven't had the chance. We haven't had to redo that, if you will.
Yeah.
So, but that's DOYO. Yeah, I got panicky. Like I was like, man, somebody's going to step up. I've been thinking about doing this marketing conference for 3 years when I moved back to Youngstown. And then so we just got paranoid. We looked on LinkedIn to see how many people were out there. And we knew that we had this target audience, target market, or an audience of marketing business sales owners. And we just went for it.
So what did it feel like? I'm curious, like when that first person said it's never going to fly in Youngstown, Ohio. Did you ever think about, what, maybe they're right, this is a bad idea, or were you kind of like, screw them, they can't see my vision?
So
or was it both?
Yeah, right. A little bit of everything. And I like the, people are like, I never wanted to say I told you so, that mentality. Maybe it's little person's complex. I love proving people wrong daily. And so when I was a kid, this goes back to when I was a kid, I'd throw a baseball up against the wall in the driveway, and I would just practice nonstop, throwing a ball. But I also like basketball as well. And I had this old neighbor, an old baseball guy, old Italian guy. And he would wave me over, and I'd run down to the house, and he'd have Copenhagen hanging out of his mouth. And he'd say, Dennis, in broken English, you got to get.
You froze up.
Small, and if you want
what did he say? You froze. What did the little Italian guy say? I got to hear it.
He would call me down, and he'd say, you got to give up that basketball. He's like, you're small. You're going to play baseball, and you're good at it. You need to play baseball. You need to practice that. And I used to say, well, first of all, and I was young. I was 10, 11 years old. I was like, man, I really love basketball. It's a fun, it's just a different sport. I love baseball, but I really love basketball. And I would be from that day on, I'd be I'm going to prove him wrong. And he was the nicest old Italian guy, in the neighborhood. I broke a window of his hitting golf balls around the yard, and I never got in trouble for it. But in the same note, I was like, damn, if I'm not going to prove him, I'm proving him wrong. I'm going to play hoops. And so when, somebody said to me, and they still do that now, hey, this is never going to fly in Youngstown, Ohio. I have another brand, Icons of Youngstown is another brand that people are like, this is this isn't going to work there.
Right.
Number one, I want to prove to people we cannot be set back by our limitations, by our history. Anything is freaking possible. So you can't listen to that. You can't underestimate that our area isn't ready for it. And yeah, I just wanted to be out and be look, assman212@yahoo.com. You are wrong.
Everybody can email him right now.
It's actually not his email. It's something close to that though. And it's
that's good.
And it's just so I don't, I mean, so those factors played into it. I want to, not only prove that guy wrong, but prove myself right. And then, it's so funny, your name of this is fearless entrepreneurship, but really at the end of the day, failure is a huge motivator. So I am not fearless at all coming into any of this. Right. I mean, I really if you're not watching The Last Dance right now, the documentary about, the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan, it is a phenomenal documentary. And the thing is, fear was a huge motivating factor for Michael Jordan. And I'm obviously not Michael Jordan, but fear is a huge motivating factor. I'm going to do a marketing conference in Youngstown, Ohio, built upon the philosophies and the strategies that I recommend and live by. If that doesn't work and nobody shows up,
right,
we've got a big issue rebounding from that.
but that's a legit fear right there. What if I do all this work and nobody shows up? And to some, it might sound like, well, that's impossible. You know, people are going to show up. May not be how many you want. But when you're in that moment, you're like, what if nobody?
And backing up to like, I think it's 7 years ago now, like this past month that is almost over, that we brought Paulina, my third child, home from the hospital, and I fired my boss at GE Healthcare. And I've been involved in some startups before, and I wanted to go back there, but I left my corporate marketing position to, start my own business of what I'm doing right now. And I mean, that there's a lot of stuff that comes along with that, you know what I mean? Yeah. But like, you just got to you got to go, like, you got to run with it. And, I think that the other thing is too, it's like, no matter what it is, like if you like making these decision-making processes, knowing the numbers and the statistics and the things that are out there. So data helps to drive some of that decision. And then the belief as well, the conviction, right? There's only so much market research you can do before you go do it.
Right.
And I didn't blindly like just say like, oh, I'm going to do a marketing conference in Youngstown, Ohio. Like there was a method. There was, do we have the numbers? Do we have the facilities? Do we have buy-in from civic leadership? No, we did not. But that was one very small piece of here's the 8-10 things that I think need to check out for us to go and do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I love some of these comments. Brian, I don't have time to fear. And he shared a quote earlier. You know what? I hear you, Brian. And I hear what both of you are saying as far as fearless. I believe too that there is a fear, but I'm not afraid of fear anymore. I used to be, where fear may stop me, or somebody else's opinion might be able to easily influence mine, and I may stop doing something out of fear. But it's learning how to manage that fear, right? It's the pushing through even though you're afraid. It's learning just how to overcome it. So I love some of these comments that people have been sharing on here. So Dennis, out of all the different things, I know we talked about, you do a lot when it comes to how you promote the conference every year. I mean, you're doing your webinars, you're doing your in-person meetups, you're doing social media, your email campaigns, you do video. I mean, and you're hitting the streets. You're doing the physical stuff too, and hitting the streets and making those connections. So, and I don't know if there's an answer to this, but is there one piece of that puzzle that has worked better for you and has stood out compared to the other pieces?
I think, right? So if like people get caught up in time and effort and this and that, like let's not forget the fact that I've got 4 kids under the age of 11. Right?
True story there.
It's like saying that out loud. 11, 9, 7, and 2.5, and that's on us. It's self-inflicted. And I'm super involved with coaching their sports and bringing them to their sports or dance or whatever, mountain biking, fishing, whatever it is. Like I'm going to make sure that I'm super involved in that. I watched your interview with Simon last week, and he's one of these guys that like gets up at like 4:30 in the morning, and he's got his workout in, and he's got 5 protein shakes and enjoys life. But like, I'm not like today. I poured myself out of bed at like 8:45 a.m. to get my week started. And so in addition to that personal life, that's ultimately really important to me, there's the marketing conference.
Right.
There's a print publication that features people in print, digital, and events-based type of activity. And then there's the agency consulting side of the business where I keep 5-6 clients and I handle their day-to-day marketing strategy. And all the 3 of those things kind of plays off one another. And I tell you, anybody that's out there right now, you ask what works. Well, one of the things that I've done is I've always made sure that I get my kids involved into the business and have very early on.
You do that. That's a great point. You do that.
Right. Like I and we talk things like stuff costs, like I am not afraid to tell my kids, like when we buy something, that this costs money, or that, you know, like it's money that, you know, we have to pay in order to do this crap that you guys want to enjoy. And you need to understand how much that is. Like my son wants an iPhone right now. Well, guess what? Like tough crap. Like, you know, all right, well, we're going to figure out. And so they'll stuff swag bags. They'll do the old school manual labor, like, you know, doing the power washing of the driveway. And it's like, I'm all doing that, trying to teach them how to hustle along the way. So in a long-winded way, obviously, you know, what works, all of it. I mean, like what works the best. I will tell you what works the best. And I found this kind of early on, 3 years ago in 16, in the 17, is that if I have the ability to go out and speak to a group of people in person and just be me and resonate with people, and like I see things off the cuff and like I can't even plan for that. It just comes out of my mouth and wins a lot of people over, and they think it's funny, and then they sign up and they want to come to the event. And so if I could get in front of people, that's been a big win. The other, you're looking for a tactical thing, right? You're like looking for like, is social media, or is it this, or is it a webinar?
Whatever.
And
I was just curious about your opinion.
I will tell you, it's this right here: consistency, and execution. Everybody's ideas, like everybody's got an idea, like they're working on the idea, and this person's and marketing's, and maybe we need a webinar, maybe we need a podcast, maybe we need a new website, and we need all this crap like thrown together. Execute. Like be pragmatic, consistently execute, and do that, and do it quickly on a consistent basis. And then, you know, like, webinars work. Like we get 100 people to register for a webinar.
Yeah.
And we can see over the course of a year that 1,000 people will attend our webinars. Well, we never had 1,000 people attend our conference, but we do get about a 20 or 30% conversion rate from webinar to in-person event. You know, we do a monthly meetup. I'm fine with 10, 15 people showing up for those meetups, where sometimes they're breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'll get people who are like, well, we like the formal presentation. I'm like, well, then you know what? Maybe you should get up off your ass and go do a meetup group and grow it to 400 people. And then you can do a formal presentation. But this one is over adult drinks, because that's what I like to do this month. And next month, maybe I want breakfast or lunch. And what's happened is that there's a breakfast crew. They like the coffee in the morning. There's the lunch crew. And then there's the occasional happy hour crew. So we're diverse in meeting that need. But the one thing is that we execute it every month, and we're pretty consistent about doing it every month.
We have, and that sounds easy to do, but it's hard. It's actually hard, because like when I plan this, I'm like, well, I'm in the house. I'm going to go live every day at this time, right? And then we started talking about, well, maybe I'm going to, maybe I'll road trip it to Ohio while we're on lockdown. And it's like, well, wait, I have to pull over somewhere at the same time to make sure I do it.
The whole thing, like.
Yeah. Ashley Ray says, have either of you ever dealt with fear? How do you overcome it?
Fear and failure. Yeah. Like, I mean, you joke around about doing live. I was going to do LinkedIn like every day this year and make a video, and that lasted like 24 days. And then it stopped.
That's good, though. I don't even know what day I'm on. but
every day. And like, I mean, like I dealt with failure, or not failure. You kind of, I think for me personally, like I deal with kind of like fear, like that. I don't know, like early on, even now, I don't know. Like I think the difference between like somebody judging my work and like, people come to the conference and everybody forms an opinion. People look at Icons of Youngstown. I mean, I worked for 3 years to bring Icons of Youngstown, 2.5 years to bring Icons of Youngstown to market. I put it out, and it took less than 5 minutes for somebody to take a big crap on it. Right?
So
and
how'd you overcome it?
There's fear in doing those types of things. Never bother me. Those types of things with like DOYO Live do not bother me. If I'm going to go up on stage and give a keynote presentation, for me, all those things are like I'm fearless in that. Where it was the self-confidence or the belief was actually when it came time 7 years ago to, leave the constraints of corporate America, go all in on me as a business. And then the course of that time span where I would get things going, I would consult for somebody or be working with them very closely, and they would say, we want to put you on the payroll. And at various times along the way, look, I've got 4 kids that are under the age of 11. And so that means various things of the financial, like you can't be stupidly just blindly dumb to, I'm going to go start my own business and then your kids aren't eating, right?
Yeah.
So like at times, like that belief I had in myself, like the confidence of overcoming that just finally came with having enough consistency coming in the door business wise and financially wise to get me beyond the hurdle of saying like, I'm going to be an independent business operator. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. So I've never been like you. I've never had that confidence. And that may be, again, a man-woman thing, because most men I know do have a confidence, a little bit more of a confidence. Not to say that women aren't confident, but we are wired differently, and we can go on. That's a whole he said, she said podcast that we talked about before. But actually, I do get afraid, and I still have self-doubt. Even coming on here, and coming live, I think, it's that imposter syndrome. What if, people see through me because I don't know everything and I do know, and what if they think that I don't? And it's just like, what if they're judging me and judging what I say? And so I do have that fear. But I will tell you the way that I overcame that. And in the beginning, when I launched a business, and even before that, I would only do the things that I knew that I was good at. And once it got too hard, I would quit, because my biggest fear was failing. And so I would avoid anything that I wasn't sure that I could. If I wasn't sure I could excel in it, I would avoid it, which I wish I could go back and do it over, because I would embrace it. But for a long time, that's what I was afraid of, was failure. And then I learned, after failing so many times, that all those failures were actually lessons, and there was something good in it. I'm not afraid anymore. I mean, fear still creeps in, but I can manage it, and I still push forward. And I have that confidence now that Dennis was just talking about, that you build up from experience, right? Then he's built up clients, and he's built up, this foundation that people know him and respect him. And it took me a little bit longer to build my confidence to that. But when there's really nothing to be afraid of. There really isn't. I mean, if you fail, then you pick yourself up and you take those lessons and you move on, and you just overcome it. So that's how I deal with it. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but I think Dennis and I both gave kind of different viewpoints for you on dealing with fear.
And you have to. Here's the other thing too. Like once you've got to, like I think that people that like you see guys and. I don't care. Like a boxer talks about being dominant going into a fight, not because they're not scared. They have to talk themselves into going to get punched in the face. Right. So when somebody says, I'm not afraid. I think that there's a difference between being afraid and judging kind of failure and feeling that along the way as well. Because like once you've got there, like we came out, we did DOYO Live. There were no expectations in 2016.
Yeah.
That was a pretty awesome place to be, because Youngstown's not had anything. And then now it's 17, once we did it, the expectations rose, and then 18 rose around. And then it continues now, the expectation of getting there, staying there, and excelling from that creates a whole new level. Like once you've done it once, and now you've got to do it again, but you got to do it bigger and better. There's a difference between fear and then kind of self-doubt and overcoming, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it again, I'm going to do it bigger, better. But then also the other side of that with extreme personalities, which I kind of throw myself into that A-type, personality, is the ability to accept and not the judgment, but your own self-critique and your own self-judgment that is generally harsher than everybody's else. So like, I can tell you that there's extraneous factors that went into launching Icons the first go around, the first installation. That would have been the third installation coming up on DOYO Live. And then the personal things that we went through, back 2 years ago this month, actually, with Leo's open heart surgery. So he's completely fine, happy ending the story. Like, we're all good with that. But there was the personal side of what was going on with life, the expectation of coming back for DOYO Live in its third installation of being bigger, and it's got to be better, it's got to be great. And then we've got this Icons publication that's coming out for the first time, and it was starting to get delayed along the way because that's what happens in business.
Yeah.
And then you start to take, right? And then you start to take personal attacks on you. And like, I started to think to myself, like, where it was a tremendous success on the outside, on the inside, I was feeling like I was a tremendous failure. And there was like, like, I'm not like, like, I'm sitting there judging myself ultimately very harshly. I was very bad at being in the moment of not fixing fixing DOYO Live in the moment, like working for 364 days. And people can't like kind of put this into equation, right? Or put this into perspective, or Icons, like 2.5 years to bring it to market. It's and like, I'm literally in the moment. I'm not celebrating little wins or just taking a moment to say like, wow, like, I don't want to brag, but like, we brought 300 people together that are all enjoying themselves and think like this is like a good thing, instead of like, that's out of place, that's out of place, that's out of place, this is not right.
And we do that.
And that's not healthy.
No, it's not. But, and we all do it. We're our biggest critic, so that's a great point. So Dennis, I want to thank you for coming on. I know we went a little bit over, but I loved everything that you shared. How can people find you if they want to connect with you or talk to you more? How can they find you?
How can you find me? DOYO Live actually website is under construction with our year-long sponsor, iSynergy. So you can actually still subscribe to the email newsletter, which comes out pretty much every Friday, although we flirt around with like moving that date around. We've got ongoing webinars from the DOYO Live platform as well. So any of our social media properties that are out there, you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Dennis Schiraldi. Always obviously willing to take an invite. DOYO Live, just so that you guys know, like, here's kind of like a Deanna Hinsz exclusive on the Fearless Entrepreneur Show. So I definitely know that we are gearing up for a virtual event. We did one last year. So like, that's not a stretch again for us, right? We did DOYO Live Digital Day and we had 4 or 5 hours worth of content. So we are gearing up for a DOYO Live virtual summit. And obviously it is, but it is in a response to like the current situation with what's going on. 2020 is definitely going to be impacted. There's no doubt about it. We don't know at this point if you're allowed to get together with 100 people, 500 people, or any people at all come October, November. So right now we're kind of sitting tight. I think we're going to do a small batch version of DOYO Live in 2020 in person. I think that we're going to try to make it something along the lines that we're going to do our part. Like, I'm not good at making masks. I'm not a good sewer, but I am good at putting people together and helping to build businesses. So I think we're going to try and do some sort of installation for small businesses looking to get back on their feet, sponsorship driven, so they can basically come to DOYO for free. We'll limit the audience to 50 to 100 people. And then 2021, we'll have the big, big party back. Well, big welcome back. So that's it. Awesome. Connect with me however you have to. Great job, Deanna. I appreciate you being on. Everybody out there, stay healthy, stay safe. And that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We'll catch you tomorrow.